You have a great class. Over to you, Danielle.
Thanks, Felicia. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Thanks so much for being here. Today, we're going to do a really fun class. This is a kind of a combination of techniques that has a little bit of a two-part step. Of course, we're going to use herringbone stitch to make a gemstone donut connect. And this is a bracelet design. You could do it as a necklace too, if you wanted. And then also I was going to spend some time talking about how to spiral a bead in a herringbone stitch rope. And we've done a class on herringbone stitch rope recently. It was a few months ago, I believe. And that class is available to go watch as a replay. If there's any confusion about the herringbone stitch part, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to show starting it and getting it going, but probably a little faster than we did in that previous class. So if you find yourself stuck with it at all, you can go and tag over to, it's in the PDF, the link to it. And I believe Carmi and Millie have already dropped it in the chat as well, a link to that previous class where we covered in great detail this 2-column herringbone rope. But again, I'm going to go over it and then I'm going to show the spiral and the connection for that gemstone donut, and it'll be a fun hour. So thank you all again for being here. I'm going to switch down to my mat and show you the materials that I use to get started. And so here's an up close of the design. And here's the gemstone donut without the attachment. And the way these are at the store, if you're in the Michael's gemstone section, is they come in these little cards, and there's 2 per pack. This is a tiger's eye one. I thought that was really pretty. And this is Labradorite that you're seeing here. And so that's what I'm using today. And for the seed beads, I'm using size 8 Czech seed beads from John Bead. And they are, in this case, I used just 1 color. But on some of my samples that I'm going to work on today, I'm going to pull in 2 colors to highlight different steps in creating this. And then what you're seeing here, these little, I'll bring a little closer. These little discs are actually gemstones as well. They're hematite, almost like a rondelle, but they're so flat that I want to call them a disc. Those are these, and you'll find them on the strung wall. There you get a lot of them. So you could do like a whole bracelet, maybe even a whole necklace. If you wanted to do this spiral pattern and just keep going, you could do that. But this also works with other beads too. And what I did in my sample for today, just to keep it simple so it could really stand out, was I was making some same version, right? Same exact process, but I just used another size 8 so you can see, a lot brighter the position of the bead when we're placing it. So I'll probably do that in yellow today, just to really make it pop. But yeah, that's the process and the beads there. For string thread, I'm using our Wildfire 0.006. And for beading needles, I'm going to be using the size 10 Beadalon beading needles. You'll also want to have handy a pair of scissors to cut your thread. And then if you have any of these like chain nose or flat nose pliers handy, it can help with getting your needle threaded. And that's where I'm going to start. So for how much thread to cut, you don't really need that much thread because this is worked in 2 parts. You'll work one side, finish it up, and then the other side is worked separately from it. So, just cut a comfortable length. It's very easy to add thread in this design. So the length that works for you is always going to be great. And I have a pre-threaded one ready to go here. And so for my demo, I was going to just use some brighter colors because I know that really helps with just being able to visualize what I'm doing. But just keeping in mind that you can use any colors that you like and any beads that you have handy. So here's just a quick recap of starting a 2-column herringbone stitch rope. You'll want to pick up 4 of the size 8 rounds. I'm just going to move these up a little bit so we have a little more space. There we go. Okay. And bring that down and leave a tail that's long enough to create an end. Our closure is going to be done by stringing 4 of the size 8 seed beads and reinforcing that a few times. So you'll want to leave yourself 10, maybe 15 inches or so, just a good length for creating a clasp. And once you've strung those 4 on here, this is my tail side over here and my needle side. Go ahead and just come up through the first 2 that you strung. And when you pull tight, you'll get a little box shape. And that's what you want. And I often will go through and reinforce this first one. It's just a habit, because then it's just easier to get going without it moving around on you. So all I did there is I just went through it one more time. Come down a little closer here. And now I'm going to pick up 2 more. So here's 2 more of the size 8 seed beads. And my thread's exiting here from the top of that last little segment we created. I'm going to go back through that one. So you get that. Come down through those ones we just added. And you'll get something that looks like that. We're gonna do that one more time. You want a total of 4. There's 2. And the tail is caught there. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Okay, when you've got these 4, what we're gonna do is bring them into a round shape. In order to do that, you're gonna wanna go through these 2 again. So what we're gonna do is just join from here to here, the tops of those. And now to close it up, I'm going to come back up through those last 2, the ones we were exiting before. And what you'll get there is a square. And so that's your base ladder stitch for the start of your herringbone rope. And again, it's just 2 columns. In herringbone stitch, a column is always 2 beads wide. And so that's what we've created here. So a little base that you can use for starting a herringbone stitch. And so now what I'm going to do is I'll show the stitch first before I introduce the spiral, just as a recap. You'll pick up 2 more of your size 8 beads. And then just come down through the next one. I get often asked, does it matter what direction? And it doesn't. It doesn't matter which direction you go from here. I could have gone through this one or that one. I tend to work from left to right for me because I'm right-handed. But a lot of people like to go from right to left, even if they're right-handed. So don't sweat that. Just do whatever seems right to you. And when you pull down, what's going to happen is those beads are going to sit. They're not going to sit flat. They're going to do kind of like a little V shape, which is where that herringbone name comes from. And it becomes more prominent as you create more and more rows on top of each other. And for this first stitch, we're going to be going through both of the beads in our ladder because it's just easier. It's a little challenging to try to get through one. So for my first row, I often just go back through both of those. There's 2 more. I'm just going down through the next one. So you see we're going down through the other side, the other column there. And again, those will sit in a V shape on top. So now we have those 2 beads for each column sitting like right on top of our base that we built. And so what we're going to want to do now is what's called stepping up. So you want to be exiting from one of the beads we added. So I went down through here, and again, I'm going through all the beads just for this first row. Go ahead and come up through all 3 of those. And now we're in position to start our next row. And so just to carry on with the stitch, from here on out, you only have to go down through 1. So remember, we went down through 2 before because our ladder was pretty tight here. But now we're just going to go down through that 1 bead. It's the one we added in row 3. And then turn. I'm spinning it and coming up through that next one over here. And pick up 2 more. And spin it again. and going down through that next bead. All right, and so there's that V shape again. And so now I'm going to need to step up. So turning to the side here, you can see really clearly that we're exiting from that row that's below the one we just created. So we want to step up through our top row. All right, and once you get the hang of that, it's the same step for the entire rest of the design. And this next part is optional, but sometimes it can be fun to add some visual interest and create a little spirally appearance. And I'm going to use just some size 8 seed beads to show it today, but it's just a really easy concept. You can start it wherever you'd like. I think what I usually do is I'll just pick up one in a different color and then proceed with that row. So you're adding one bead per row that's in a contrasting color. And the placement of that bead is dependent on the former. And it's going to move around as you create your design. So let's come down. Whoops, I lost my beads there. For those. Okay, there's my other side. Stepping up. I'm going to try to get through both beads there. Tail out of the way. Okay. All right. And so now looking at this, what do I have going on here? I have my new color and my old color. And I wanted to spiral up, from the last one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up my main color and my new color so that this new color will sit one bead over. So we're starting to move up in a spiral, right? And I'm going to turn that and come up through. And this will just be a solid main color. And sometimes with herringbone, not sure if I mentioned, but you'll see me helping it a lot to make it go in that V shape. And it just it'll tell you when you need to do that. Here's another step up. Okay, and so here, I don't need to add any of the new color because I want my spiral to now, become over here. So here's 2 of the main. Again, I'm going to help that out. Turn it. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my new contrasting color here because see, it's going to step up. It's going to go in the next round there. Let me show you what that looks like. So see, it's in the next row and the next position. So one up and in the next position. So we know our next one is going to need to sit here. So let's go around until we get there. Again, that's stepping up from that row. And so here we just want to have 2 of the main. Turning up through here. Okay, so we want 1 main color and 1 contrasting color. And so you can see that beautiful pattern starting to form. And this will work with basically any beads that are the same height. They don't have to be the same width. And so I get asked a lot about, well, what if I want to use a bead that's taller than my size 8 seed bead or whatever seed bead you're using? If you do that, you have to stack. And it's a little more challenging. I'm thinking we'll do that in another class, but for the purposes of this demo, any bead will work that's the same height. So see these discs, they're wider, but they're the same height as my size 8. So it works. But if that bead was taller than my size 8 seed bead, I would need to do a stacking. So picking up 2 and then my larger bead, right? And that's kind of how I mix that up. We'll do a class on that where we'll try to do some size 8s with like a 4mm bead. And but for this demo, we'll just stick with something that is the same height, because that's a great way to get the concept down.
Danielle,
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask one question.
sure.
Because it will help people who are going to be able to do it. Sometimes you're stepping up through one bead and sometimes through 2.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I complete a row, so I've done 2 around, right? We only have 2 columns going here. So I'll create my first side, create my second side, and when it's time to move up to my next row, you'll see me step up through the
2.
one I just finished. Yeah, so I'll show that right now. Again, I'll try to narrate it a little bit better. So here's I'm doing my contrasty color now because it's going to be right the next step there. So coming up. So this is the first side of this row. So there's that one turning, and I'm only coming up through 1 because if you look closely, you'll see my heights line up. I've got half of it done and half of it not done. But when I add this next one, see my heights, they're the same right here. And so I need to step up. I just finished that row, this column and that column. So it's only a 2 column design. So that row is just adding those 2 stacks. And now I need to step up through the row I just created.
Danielle, thank you. We understand now.
Cool. Okay. And I'll highlight every time I do that from here on out so that it's super clear. And so we're going to go ahead and pick up our main color and our contrasting color. And there you go. Just keep spiraling up. Finishing the row here. And sometimes they spin. They spin on me a lot. So I just, kind of helping them. And turning. And again, here we are at a step up point where I'm going to need to go through 2. Most of the time I can get the needle through both beads at the same time, but not always. You just have to play with it and see. So I'm going to just go around 1 more time or 2 more times. And then if there's any questions about the spiral, just let me know. And the thought I had was I could show the donut, the little hematite donuts to see. Sorry, hematite discs. So I can show what that looks like. Grab some of those. There's a step up right there. Okay, so here's my spiral starting to form. You can see it's going around and around. It can look very stunning if you just keep going for a long time. I'm going to grab one of these. Or a few of them, I guess. So these are the ones that were used in this design. It's exactly the same as what we're doing here. And I want my placement of it to be above that one, right? Because that's my next point. So for this part, I'm just going to do 2 main color. Is the first half of that row. And now here's my disc. And you can see how they're the same height. Yeah, the disc's definitely wider, but it's the same height. So that's going to work just fine. So we're going to bring it down. Needs a little more help to sit properly, but there it is. I'm going to turn. Again, this is a step up going through 2. And so I know I need my disc to be next, right? just following that, you know, kind of a pattern around where it spirals. The discs need a lot more help if you're working with those to get them to be flat, but it's totally doable. And the next row on top of them tends to flatten them down. That really helps. Just treating it this the same way as we did our beads. Here's a step up. All right, I'm gonna make one more row like this, and then I'm gonna make a couple normal rows. And I wanted to highlight why I'm doing that. Let's see, that one is, yeah. So, well, two things going on here. What you can see is they kind of open. It's a lot more prominent when you're using the discs, but you see how this can spread? Well, you can treat them as a junction point. And that's what I ended up doing for the donut. And I'll show you how to start this, but you just start doing a single column. And so that's the next step. That's where we're going with this. But if you're working with your discs, meaning if you're working with these kind of wider ones, it might help. It might help you get the, you know, the dimensioning right to do some normal rows above it, normal herringbone rounds, because these discs kind of offset the placement of the beads a little bit on the inside. That's just something to think about. I think it would still work even if you just wanted to go straight from rows with discs in them to doing the split off. I think it would work, but for purposes of this demo, again, there's a step up right there. I'm just going to make like 2 normal rows before I keep going with that. We're doing okay on time. I thought maybe I would show adding thread as well, and I am running out of thread, so it's perfect timing. Let me do a couple normal rows here. Here's a step up. Oops, there we go. And here's another step up. All right, I'm going to pull my needle off that. I'm going to leave this old thread just kind of hanging out. And I'm going to get my new thread ready. And also in herringbone stitch, adding thread is a really good opportunity, because if you have any spots in your design where you feel like there's too much spacing, that happens to me sometimes with this stitch, especially if I'm working with a large bead like that hematite disc. If you use this step, you can fix little gaps or little places where you aren't happy with the tension. And what I did there off camera was I flattened the end of my Wildfire with my pliers and just kind of quickly threaded that needle. I'm just going to cut another thread there. Okay, so my old thread is just hanging out. I'm going to bring in my new thread anywhere, like it doesn't really matter. But one thought I had was, if you want it to be exiting in herringbone stitch, it could exit from either column, and it's not really going to change your design unless you're following a pattern. But you know, it can sometimes help just to come up through a bead that's below your exiting working thread, just because you know you'll be able to weave around in a way that puts you exiting up from that spot. So there's just something to think about there, but it's not super critical, just an idea. And I'm going to do my usual thing where I keep going until my tail doesn't move, until this doesn't move anymore. I'm being careful not to pull it completely out, which I've done before. So there's one. And in herringbone, it happens really quick. So it's kind of nice. I'm going to reinforce my disc right there. See, went ahead, and you can go through more than one stack if you want when you're weaving in. There you go. There's one complete round. So let's test our tail for movement. There's our tail right here. And I'm going to pull on my new working thread and see if it moves. See, one round and it's already locked in. Now I did some zigzagging, right? I went up a little higher and then came down, but it only took me one trip around to get that to be pretty tight. So I'm going to go ahead and just shoot straight up now. Get through there in one shot. There we go. All right. For the knotters out there, if you love to knot, feel free to knot those together, but you don't really need to. What I usually do is I come back around and weave this old thread in to some new rows after I've made some new rows. So again, I'm just going to let that hang out. I am going to trim this one, get that out of the way. So that one's gone. Okay, let's make a few more, just really quick, make a few more rounds. There's one. And I'm gonna have to step up here. So that's my old working thread. We're just ignoring it right now, right? Just leaving it out of the way. I used it right there to tighten something that had come loose. I pulled on it. If you did a knot, that would be one great reason to do a knot, is it wouldn't get loose on you when you add your new row. So it's probably okay to do a knot there. Here's one. Okay. Okay, so just really quick, I'm going to get rid of our old working thread. I made 2 rows. It's a new needle. And I'm going to bring it up. I'm just weaving it in, just kind of going through whichever bead it lets me go through. And so you get the idea. You just keep going around until it, you know, kind of crosses itself. I mean, it went around one full rotation, is probably fine. And if you did a knot, even better. Here's my step up with my old, sorry, with my new working thread. And there you go. Old thread's gone, new thread's in, you know, position to keep going for as long as I want to. So you would keep going for a length that is about a little less than half of what you'd like your design to be. And so this is a good time to talk about measuring. So the donut's going to add a lot. It's going to add, let me get you actual numbers. It's going to add, if you're using the same donuts that I am, you can count on it adding 2 inches, because from where we start our branch off, which is right here to here, I'm getting about 2 inches for that. From branch to branch. It's actually a hair over 2 inches. So maybe even you could say 2 1/4. So take your total desired bracelet length, subtract 2 1/4 from that, and make this half that length. And in the case of my design, I think that ended up being roughly 2 inches or so. This came out to be a hair under 7 inches, I think it was. If I remember correctly. Actually, it's exactly 7. Yeah, exactly 7 there. So go ahead and just play with that, but also keeping in mind, if you had to, you could always take your tail here and add more length at the end. If you got all the way through it, you had this connected and it's all built, and you're ready to put the clasp on and you're like, ugh, it's not long enough. You can add here if you want to. Just keeping that in mind. It's especially easy on this design because it's just the 2 columns, so you don't get a really pronounced ladder stitch, and it still looks really cool. So from here, to start doing this part, I'm going to switch to I'm going to switch to single column, and I'm going to switch to a yellow color so you can tell where I made that change. So here I'm doing a connected round, right? And now I'm going to switch to just doing a single column by itself with my yellow beads. So normally, right, what we would do next is we would turn and we go up through this one and start creating. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come back and go up through this one, which is essentially a step up, right? Through one row below, and there you go. I'm gonna do that 24 times. 24 was kind of the magic number for looking good around the donut, making it through and around with a little bit of space for movement. So that's 24 sets of these little yellow stacks here. And I won't do quite that many. I'll just do a few to show you, and then we'll switch to one that I have ready to go. But it does go really fast. It doesn't take very long. So you're just working one column. Let's do a few more. And so how that looks here is just like that, right? It's a little branch. And a lot of designers use this concept in general to do a lot of stuff, not just going around the donut like we're doing today, but you could do like a join a point over here and come back and then put a bead inside. I've seen some designers do that, and they actually will run beading wire through. So like run beading wire from here through here and string like a beautiful gemstone bead. And then this would come around, right? It would connect again. You come back up through it and start doing 4 column again over here. Looks like an eye. And so that's something that I was considering maybe we would do for another class at some point. But it's a little bit more advanced, but it just, while we're here, I thought I'd mention it in case anybody out there wants to try it. It's kind of a neat idea. All right, and so that's pretty much all you got to do to get ready to connect. So what I have over here are 2 that I've already done 24 stitches on. So I'm just going to get this one out of the way and unravel one of these. Start with that one. And I don't have a lot of working thread left on this one, but it didn't really need to have very much, because all we're going to do is connect it. I'm going to show you without the donut first, because it's easier to see what I'm doing without the donut in the way, but then I'll take it apart and put the donut on it. So 24 of these, right? 24 or so. And then we're going to connect it. So when you fold it over, consider that it's, it's going around through the donut, right? When you fold it over, it's just going to connect right there. And so we're just going to sew them together by going through that side and coming up through this one. Super easy. And then you want to go through that bead. And it's pretty much connected. I'll reinforce it. I'll go around one more time, 2 more times, and then weave in. And there's your donut connected. So let's pull that off really quick. My needle back on there. And donut, donut, donut. Here it is. All right. So I'm going to come up through, bring it around, and let's just do that again. Let's come down through for that bead there. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue on through there. Just kind of combining those steps into one, right? There it is. Let's reinforce that so it's nice and strong. I think it was really tight with that last column. So it's, and I went ahead and went down 2 beads here. You can do that if you want to. You don't have to, but I tend to do that when I'm weaving in anyway. So that's what I've done there. Just making sure to come up the same. If you go down 2, come back up 2, right? And let's keep going through there. I'm gonna do it one more time. I went up 3. Just getting it all reinforced and tight. And now I'm just gonna keep going down into my rope, exiting wherever, and weave in. To weave in, just figure out where your thread path's going. So it looks like I need to go this way. I'm gonna go around a few times. And around and around. And this is going to bear some weight, so give it the extra time of a good weave in. And I know for the knotters out there, I could show you how to do a quick half hitch. We covered this in the original herringbone class we did, but again, what it looks like is you would just kind of borrow a thread bridge and stitch around it. I like to go with the one that is in front of the bead I'm going into next. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but I picked up a thread bridge there. Let me get it in focus. See how I've gone, I'm exiting from that bead here, and I've gone under that little thread there and pull up a loop. Come through your loop, and there's a half hitch knot right there. And then I would keep going down through that next bead. Handy also if, like me, you've let your thread get a little short and you don't feel like adding thread again. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to trim that. That's probably good enough for this. And let's put the other side on.
Danielle, that's amazing. We're so impressed on the sidebar. Had no idea how you were going to do that. So that's awesome. I did want to go back to one of Suzanne's questions. Is
Sure.
are you keeping the bracelet relatively tight for fit so the donut doesn't move around too much and end up at the bottom of your wrist?
Let's see. I don't remember if I was worried about that or not, but I made it about as tight as I could. But keeping in mind that this rope, especially if you go and put in these the hematite discs, it's not going to bend super. Let me show you what I mean. It's not going to curve very much. You're gonna have to make it curve. So you may need to add length for that. Right. Considering that's going to put some space, some air between your skin and the design. That's kind of what happened for me here. So I would say go for what you would normally do and see how it looks. And then you have that option of adding if you want to. I can actually show that. I'll show that when we put our clasp on. I'll show adding if you wanted to add space there.
And Danielle, Cindy thinks the lavender looks amazing with the Labradorite.
Oh, thank you. I was excited about that color. I was looking for something that we could see easier, but I wasn't loving the idea of our usual turquoise with the Labradorite. It wasn't popping for me. It probably would have been gorgeous, but thanks. Yeah, I was thinking, let's use that purple. I'm feeling the amethyst today.
I'm thinking, Danielle, if you wanted to make a bunch of these as gifts, would you do what you've done? Basically make all your bases and then join the donuts last? Like, would you make 12 like this and then do the donuts?
Oh yeah, I mean, they would speed it up. It's factory style, but sometimes there's also that motivation or like the satisfaction of getting to do this part, kind of breaking up the monotony of creating this part. So I don't know, it's hit or miss. It can, both are great ideas. And then, so I've got my other side. Again, this is exactly the same thing that, we did before. I just created 24 of those little single column. And what we're going to do next is just join it around the donut. And before I join it though, I just wanted to point out one little extra feature of herringbone stitch that, in case anyone hasn't thought of it yet, that is really cool. So let's say you wanted to start stitching more rope here. Like what if we didn't have something to connect to like we do this? What if you wanted to just keep going with more rope? You can pull 4 of these beads out by exiting from one and adding your height, right? You can basically create another rope off 4 of these and just start going. So future class, we will do that. I'll show you how that looks, but it's this same idea, just recycled so many different ways. You can do so much really, really neat stuff. And so here we are over here, just gonna link that. And I'm doing that same thing we did before. I'm gonna go down through one bead here and coming up through the adjacent one. And that's linked. So now we're just reinforcing that. And if you're having any trouble getting through the tight spots like I am, you see I'm kind of struggling with it. If you switch to a size 12 beading needle, it might help. For most of the design, I was using a 10, but with this part, I'm going to go down one more. The reason I go down an extra, row when I'm reinforcing is so that I'm not creating a pressure point on just one row. I'm distributing the weight across 4 different rows. So, I'll keep going up north of the one that I connected. And I might even go one more because see, there's a gap here. Or 2. There we go. It wanted to do 2, so I'm not going to argue with it. Okay, and going down as far as makes sense here. Okay, and let's just leave that in. Following the same thread path as before. Go down one. But so that herringbone stitch path, that one where you're, when you created the original design, all I'm doing is just tracing it, right? Just going around and around in the same spots as before. I tried to ombre this one a little bit, where it switches the base color and the main, or sorry, the main color and the contrasting. So I didn't do a knot for this one. I'm just going to go ahead and trim it. And let's get our clasp on. There's that. Pretty fun. We've got these ends. And which one of these do I have more? I've got more thread to play with on this side. So let's try this one. Looks like I just kind of left a longer tail on this side for some reason. So let's say I got to the end and I was like, it's too short. I'm not happy with it. I need to add length. No problem. You can do that really easily. You'll just want to start creating herringbone rows on top. Take a quick look at it and figure out where your overpasses are, meaning where it's going. And for me, that is going in this direction. And remember, that was my ladder stitch. So the reason I'm going through 2 is just for, just for ease. You could go through just 1 if you wanted, but you're kind of breaking up your ladder. But it is possible. Show what that looks like. And it might even help with kind of making it just flow more. So let's see what that looks like. kind of worked well actually. So you can break up your ladder stitch if you want. And there you go. Just keep adding rows just like that. I'll add one more. You could add thread if you needed to, so that, you know, if you didn't have enough tail, you could add more thread and just keep going. Here's a step up. Same thing we were doing before, just in the opposite direction. And so if you get to the spot and you're ready to put your clasp on, probably the best way to do that, I'm going to grab a clasp really quick or some jump rings. Let me bring that other design back. In this design, I did some embellishing. You know, I made a little head pin with discs on it, all totally your style, whatever you like doing. For the demo for now, I'm just going to throw a lobster claw. This is all jump rings, guys. I have a lobster claw one over here. And grab your pliers. I've got my square nose. Let me get my bent nose pliers. Where are those? Here they are. When I do my jump rings, I like to work with these kind of like bent nose pliers and square, because they hold my jump rings really nicely. Finding the seam here. And just a lateral motion to open that. So you got your jump ring open there. Bring that on. Just listening for the click. Okay. Another thing you could do is if you have a clasp with a, you know, you could just go straight to your clasp if you wanted to. I tend to do a jump ring in case I ever want to change it. But you can see from the structure here, a lobster claw attached directly in between there would also be totally fine. You could just go add 2/8, the lobster claw, and then 2/8 and continue. So that's something to think about if you're worried about your jump ring coming through, or using a closed jump ring is another great way to solve that worry. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and string 4. I'm going to go through there. My jump ring can move over all of those. And now let's take a look at where I'm exiting. So I'm exiting from this bead. I'm going to go ahead and leap over diagonally to this one. Come down through that one. And a little loop will form at the top. And then what I'm going to do is stitch around. So I'm just following that thread path. Did I go the right direction? Yes, I did. It's going to give me a chance to kind of close it up. Actually, I may have gone the wrong. From where I was here, I actually want to go this direction. And the reason for that is I want to connect these, right? And following the same convention as before. So I'll show that again on the other side, but I'm just closing it up and heading in the same direction that I was when I made my original circle. So I'm closing this up. And you can do this before you add your clasp, but I just did it this way. All right, now I need to get back up through my loop because I don't want to just have one thread pass through my loop. Now that everything's tight here and closed up, I'm going to borrow a thread bridge to turn. So you want to pick up, you can either go this side or this side's probably stronger. So I'm going to go over here. You see what I'm doing? I'm coming up under that thread. And using that as a way to get back through all those beads. Here's the other side. I'm borrowing this thread bridge to turn here. Here's my third pass through all those beads. So 3 is probably pretty good. You could do 4 if you want. I'm gonna go ahead and weave in and then start over on the other side. And I always have to figure out what direction I'm going. So and the way you can tell is your overpasses versus underpasses through the beads. So in this case, this is an overpass, underpass, right? This is going over, and then here I go under and up. You'll be able to see it. It's hard to see on my camera right now, but it's a lot more pronounced in person. You can see that the rainbow is going that way. And then it's going that way. And even if you just went the other direction, it wouldn't affect, your design would not break or anything. It just, it would have you would see it is I guess what I'm trying to say. It would kind of affect the flow, but it would still be fine. All right, I'm going to trim that. Oops. There we go. So there's one side done. I closed it up and then put that little top on it. Same thing on this other side. This side has a ladder stitch base because I didn't build extras on it. So I don't need to close this side. I'm hoping that makes sense. But on this side, we added rows. So we had an open. That's what when I did that little loop around, I was closing it up. And this side, we won't have to do that. That one does not want to thread. I'll find a different needle really quick here. I think I might have not flattened this one. There it goes. Okay, we're good. Yay. Okay, so this is the other side. Same thing, I'm gonna do it in yellow this time so it stands out a little better. So here's 4 beads, jump ring. And it's not closed. Let's close that jump ring up. Go through it. So here's that square at the top. I'm crossing over and going down through the diagonal over here. And this is the ladder stitch started spot. So I don't need to do what I did before where, I went around and sealed it up because it's already sealed. It's good. So we're just going to go straight to the borrowing a thread bridge part for turning. So just looking for where that is. For the ladder stitch, I'm going to have to go down one more because we didn't have bridges in between these. My nearest bridge is down here. So you see we picked up that one. I hope it's visible there. We're borrowing that starting bridge there, coming back up. I gotta go through these 2. So that's how to do it right off the ladder stitch base. And back down, I'm gonna go through 2 again on this side. So here's 1, and here's 2. And so same thing, just gonna find that bridge there, borrow it, use it to turn. And that's it. Same thing before, we just keep going through it and weaving in. I know we're getting close to the hour here. But yeah, so from here, I would probably just maybe reinforce one more time or go ahead and just weave in. And you got it. You could add extra jump rings if you want. Add that little decorative embellishment if you'd like to. See if I can get that open. There we go. We finished it.
That's perfect, Danielle. I think I was holding my breath for the last 10 minutes. Watching you put those findings on. So that looks great. Everyone's saying on the sidebar, it was wonderful. It looks like it might become a favorite for a couple of people. And, you know, I hope I can make one in 2 hours or so. First one, we'll see how it goes. It was great watching you do it. And yeah, sidebar is full of many, many thanks.
Oh, that's great. I see smiling faces there, so I'm just waving.
Danielle, maybe you only have a second to tell people what the class is next week instead of all of them.
Yeah, so next week, let's just go to show that one. It is seed beaded toggle. So it's a bracelet. I recycled a bracelet we already did. That's what I'm showing here is we did a herringbone crystal bracelet, and I want to show how to make a toggle clasp out of just seed beads. And so that's what this class is about next week. Super easy and really a great way to make a totally matching closure for your design. And we'll also do a recap of this too, because it'll be a class where we have lots of extra time to kind of chat and stuff, because it's super easy to make. All right. And yeah, so unless there's any more questions, I just want to wish you guys a great weekend and say thanks again for being here for class today. And I can't wait to see what you make. If you share your work, share it to Make It with Michaels and to John Bead, and we will be sure to share it with everybody. And hearts to you guys. Have a great weekend.